So what is going on, people, and welcome to another video on the channel. And well, I did my championship predictions on Friday, I believe that video came out, and this one today is my Premier League predictions. I would have liked to have got this would have liked to have got this video out a little bit sooner, but you know, things are happening, so yeah, it's just been a little bit delayed. But I am recording this on the Monday, the day this comes out, so yeah, games have happened in the Premier League, obviously. But these predictions were done before the fixture started, so no, none of the weekend's results or anything have influenced these. These were done, yeah, as I said, in preparation for the first games of the season. As I record this at the moment, it's like half time in the Wolves Sheffield United game, so you know, just giving you a bit of context. So without any further ado, let's get into my Premier League predictions, and we will be starting again from the bottom to the top. So for me, to finish bottom of the Premier League this year, we have got West Bromwich Albion. I think, you know, it's always hard for the promoted sides when they come up to, you know, to stay in the Premier League, especially those that have come up in the playoffs. And, you know, the champions normally do okay. Obviously, Norwich didn't do that well last season. But yeah, for West Brom, for me, I mean, I like Bilic as a manager, but West Brom did struggle in parts in the Championship last season, drew a lot of games, almost threw away automatic promotion. But yeah, I just think, you know, with the signings that they've made as well, I mean, you know, they signed Pereira permanently. He was fantastic for them last season. Garner the same as well. But they really haven't brought in much proven Premier League quality that can really help with their survival bid. Obviously, we saw them yesterday get, you know, easily dispatched by Leicester. I mean, yeah, it was 2 penalties, but even Leicester had them on the ropes for most of the game. So yeah, West Brom for me are going to finish bottom and go straight back down. In 19th position, we have another promoted club, and for me, it is going to be Fulham. Again, you know, we saw Fulham come up a couple years ago, spend about £100 million and just, you know, not survive. And I feel like, even though they haven't spent anywhere near as much this time round, I feel like their fate is going to be the same. You know, Scotty Parker did a really good job last year. I really rate him as a young manager. But I just think, again, you know, they weren't the best in the Championship last year. You know, they weren't people's favourites heading into the playoffs to get promoted. And they, you know, the likes of some of the signings as well, you know, they brought in the likes of Mario Lemina from Southampton on loan. I mean, he didn't exactly pull up any trees at Southampton, so in an arguably worse side, then I don't know how much he can do for them. They have brought in a couple of other good players. They got Areola in from PSG. I think that's a really solid option. Kind of like what they did in the last time they were in the Premier League, though. They brought in Sergio Rico. I thought he was a good goalkeeper, but you know, he can't do it all by himself. Areola, you know, World Cup winner. He's been there, done it. Really good addition, but again, I'm just not too sure. Kenny Tete as well is another fullback that I like, but again, you know, just not really a lot of strength, and I think Fulham will struggle and go back down again this year. Okay, so for me, taking the last relegation spot, we have Aston Villa. Now, you know, they weren't great last year, let's be honest. You know, they survived on the final day. But I just think that I just don't think there's enough about them. Again, at this point, they've only made 2 signings, Matty Cash and Ollie Watkins. You know, both really good Championship players. Obviously, Ollie Watkins scored a lot of goals last year. But, you know, can he do it in the Premier League? It's obviously a big step up. Matty Cash, you know, how will he perform? I feel like Villa are very much just reliant on Jack Grealish. And, you know, I don't know what to think of Jack Grealish, because sometimes I watch him and think, yeah, he's actually a really good player. Sometimes I watch him and just think, no, he's too hyped. So I'm not too sure. Villa really need to sort of become a really good unit. I feel like they rely on Grealish too much, and if he's having an off day, then, you know, it's not going to bode well for them. But I just think this season is going to be a step too far for them, and yeah, I think they are going to get relegated this season. Okay, so in 17th place and surviving relegation, I have gone for Crystal Palace. Now, you know, they picked up a win over Southampton at the weekend, which is obviously a great start to the season for them. But again, you know, they've been one of those clubs that's sort of teetering bottom half of mid-table, if you like, just sort of surviving there or thereabouts. I think they will just about manage to pull it off again this year. I think keeping Wilfried Zaha is going to be massive for them. If they can do that, then, you know, they'll have an even better chance. Eze, I think, is a really good signing, was so good in the Championship, and when he came on at the weekend, showed flashes of brilliance. So I think if him and Zaha can combine, Townsend is a good threat as well. I think they will do well, and Hodgson's wise old dog, he'll have them set up properly as they always do, and I think they'll just about manage to survive. But whether Hodgson keeps his job is could be a close one. So in 16th position, I've gone for Brighton and Hove Albion. Again, they did really well last season. Graham Potter come in and did a really good job. I think a lot of people, once Chris Hughton had been sacked, I think a lot of people had written them off. But Graham Potter come in, did a really good job. They picked up lots of draws last year and some, like they beat Arsenal post-lockdown or during the lockdown, section of the season. And I like Brighton. I think they play a good style of football, and they try and be competitive. They've got some good players as well. I think Mopai, really bagged about 10 goals last season. If he can do the same, or if not go a bit better, I think that would be good. They have let some key players go, the likes of, Aaron Moy has gone to China, and, like Montoya has left as well, Shane Duffy has gone. So they're losing some key players, but then they've done all right in terms of recruiting. They've got Ben White back from Leeds, who was massive last season. Doesn't look like he's going to go anywhere. So he could partner Lewis Dunk. I think keeping Lewis Dunk as well. I'm surprised that not many people have gone in for him. I think he's a really good player. And they've recruited some decent players as well. They brought in Adam Lallana on a free transfer from Liverpool, and I think his experience could really help the team, help some of those younger players. They brought in Veltman from Ajax as well. He's experienced. He's been at Ajax for a number of years. So I think that'll be a good addition to the defence as well. So, and they've got the likes of Trossard there as well, who I think I really like. So, I think they'll be all right. They, again, another sort of typical season for Brighton. I think they'll survive. Won't always be comfortable, but I don't think they'll be in much danger. So in 15th position, I have got West Ham United. Now, this is one I actually have debated a little bit over. I was kind of tempted to put them a little bit lower down. Gold and Sullivan are... the hot topic of conversation at the moment, especially just West Ham in general. No investment whatsoever. The only signing they've made is bringing in Souček on a permanent deal. I think Moyes is, he's got enough about him as a manager to keep them up. I think on paper they've got a decent squad. They haven't really lost too many first team players. Obviously the likes of Dean Garner's gone, which Mark Noble voiced his concern about. But I think, on paper, they've got a good enough squad. I think their big players need to step up. The likes of Felipe Anderson comes to mind straight away. He's really not impressed since he's joined West Ham. He really needs to step up and have a good season. But, hopefully for their sake, they invest towards the end of the transfer window. But who knows? If they don't, then they could struggle. But I back them to stay up, and I think a solid 15th for West Ham. So in 14th position, I have gone for Burnley. Now, they had a really good season last year, finished in the top half of the table. Nick Pope, standout player for them, I feel. I just think, I don't think they're ever going to be in threat of relegation under Sean Dyche. You know what to expect from Burnley. 4-4-2, set up well, hard to beat. They'll pick up results. They'll lose a few games. They're just that sort of average team. They've lost Jeff Hendrick this year to Newcastle. But that's really one of the only players they've lost. But they haven't really brought anyone in either. They've brought in a lot of youngsters, but not really much first team investment. So I feel like that might hinder them a little bit, and which is why I've put them a bit lower down the table. So I feel Burnley 14th for me. In 13th position, I'm going to go for Southampton. Now obviously they picked up an opening day defeat of the weekend to Crystal Palace. They've made a couple of decent signings. Obviously, they've brought in Walker Peters on a permanent deal from Spurs. And they've also brought in that centre-back Salisu, I believe. Someone from Valladolid, something like that, in Spain. So a couple of decent, acquisitions for the back line. I think that was Southampton's problem, is they just needed to strengthen. You've got the likes of Danny Ings up top, who proved last season he's still a massive goal threat. Had a really good season. They've lost some big players. They lost Højbjerg to Spurs. That's a big, he was quite a big player for them in the middle of midfield. The likes of, they've released Yoshida, which is, he wasn't necessarily a starter, but an option at the back. I guess they've covered that with Salisu and just other players as well. Like Cedric's gone to Arsenal on a permanent as well. So, I think I like Hasenhüttl. I like what he's trying to do. I think this year they will have a better season. I don't think it will get as bad as a 9-1 compared to what it was with Leicester last year. So I think it will be a solid season for them. I think it will be an improvement. But yeah, don't expect to see them pulling up too many trees. In 12th position, I have gone for Newcastle United. Now, Newcastle, I would have changed this, I think, if I'd have, if I hadn't sort of set these in stone when I'd done it, and it's like, right, that's it. I think if I'd have changed it secretly between now and, when I did it and now, I may have put Newcastle up a little bit higher. But I think, when I did this was around, they just brought in Wilson and Fraser and that sort of thing. So I think they've done some really good business. Obviously the takeover didn't go through, which they're really disappointed by, but they've still done some really good business. As we said, Wilson and Fraser. Wilson for 20 million I think is a bit of a steal. I'm surprised he hasn't gone to a bigger club. Fraser on a free, obviously we know what he can do in the Prem as well. But like we said with Hendrick, they brought him in as well. Jamal Lewis as well from Norwich is a really good acquisition. I'm amazed that no one's gone on for Max Aarons as well. But Newcastle played well against West Ham. I mean, it is West Ham. We're not expecting them to do brilliantly, but 4-4-2, Carroll and Wilson linked up really well. Obviously Wilson got a debut goal. I like Newcastle as well. I think Steve Bruce gets a hard time. I think he's a half decent manager. He knows what he's doing. I think it will be a quiet season for them. They'll go about their business, and 12th I think is a respectable finish. So in 11th position, I have gone for the final promoted club, last year's Championship champions, Leeds United. Leeds were unbelievable last year in the Championship. Bielsa has done a magnificent job for them. It'd be interesting to see how Bielsa ball works in the Premier League. Obviously they had that fantastic game with Liverpool at the weekend. Some might say that it was a bit harsh on them not to get a point out of that game. I don't know how to see it, because they did perform well, but then I think just Liverpool performed really badly, so it may have made Leeds look a little better, but I still have faith in them. They have 3 shots on target, 3 goals, so if they're going to be that clinical throughout the season, then they'll be absolutely fine. I think they'll be fine anyway. I think they'll treat us to some really good football, especially their home games. I think that's where they'll obviously get the most of their points. I think that's where any promoted club really needs to get the bank all their points, but especially playing the way that they do. I know Bielsa has come out and said that they're not really going to change. It's just going to be this way. I think away from home, like we saw at Liverpool, against the bigger teams and against sort of wiser teams, then it's not going to quite work out. At home, I think they'll pick apart the smaller teams. I think that they'll do really well. They might surprise a few of the bigger teams as well. You can definitely see that happening. They've made some good additions as well. Rodrigo is a good player, did well in Spain. Obviously gave away the penalty that proved to be the winner at the weekend. Robin Koch as well at the back, I think is a good addition. Don't know too much about him, but certainly solid defender, replacing Ben White. And they could make more additions, who knows. I saw a story today that apparently they tried to convince Payet to come. So if they're going to be that ambitious, then it'll be interesting to see. But I think Leeds will be absolutely fine. I think it'll be fun to watch this season. But I don't think they'll be quite top half. So I'm going to go for 11th. So into the top half of the table then. In 10th position, I've got Leeds' Yorkshire neighbours, Sheffield United. I think they obviously had a superb season last season. Defied so many expectations. Everyone pretty much predicted them to go straight back down, but Chris Wilder has done an unbelievable job there, and they were proved so hard to play against. They didn't score many goals, but they conceded even less, I think. Absolutely superb for them. Made decent additions. They brought Aaron Ramsdale back after losing Dean Henderson. Hopefully he can fill that void, because Henderson was superb for them. They've brought in the Derby youngsters as well. I was going to say Jamal Lowe then. Jaden Bogle and Max Lowe. There we go. Provide competition in fullbacks. I don't think necessarily see much game time, especially to start with. But the more they adapt to Premier League football, then they could press into the first team. Ethan Ampadu as well, I think is a really good addition to that side. So I think a lot of people have tipped them to sort of have second season syndrome. I don't think many people expect them to go down. But I think a lot of people have got them to finish worse than I have. But, I really like what they're doing. Obviously now they're losing 2-0 to Wolves. So, I might, look a bit silly on this one. But I think, Sheffield United, I back them to do really well. Really like Wilder as a manager. And, I think they'll do fine. I think they'll finish top half again this year. in ninth position, I am going to go for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, ninth may be a little bit low. They seem to have finished sort of 7th or 8th for the last few years. I don't know. I fancy this is nothing against Wolves. I just fancy other teams to do better than them. So the Wolves is kind of just like I've slotted them in just because this is just where I think they'll be. I think they're better than the likes of Sheffield United and Leeds, but I just think the other teams will have better seasons. So not really too much to say. I like the signing of Fabio Silva. Really exciting. To see what he can do. They've lost a couple of players this year as well, like some Doherty who's gone to Spurs. So yeah, I think with Wolves, it will be much of the same. Nuno has, done a really good job since he's been there. But I don't know whether they'll kick on or whether they'll sort of just maintain their position. But they've got some great players, and I think they'll challenge. I think sort of outside the European spots will be quite close. Sort of 7th, I think the team sort of 7th to 9th will be quite tight. But yeah, I just think 9th for Wolves for me. So in 8th position, I've got Leicester City. Now I think a lot of people probably would have had Wolves to finish higher than Leicester, but I really quite like Leicester. A big fan of Brendan Rodgers and the way that he plays football. They've only brought in one player this year of Leicester, the Castagne. The fullback from Atalanta, obviously scored yesterday, but I think he's a really good player. I just think they had a terrible post-lockdown finish to the season, and that's really hurt them. Obviously they looked nailed on for Champions League for a lot of the season, and then just the form post-lockdown was absolutely awful. They've bagged Europa League football. And I just think, a lot of people have questioned whether they have the depth and the strength to, compete on two fronts. I think they do. I think if they can keep a lot of their players fit, then they'll do really well this year. Vardy won the Golden Boot last year, but he's 33 now, so he might, probably one more season maybe. But yeah, the likes of Maddison, Harvey Barnes is really exciting. Demarai Gray is there as well. So they've got plenty of good players going forward. Could probably do with a few more additions. I think Rodgers has come out and said that he's not happy that they haven't done any more business, but they haven't lost anyone either. So I think Leicester will do well. I think they'll do better than people give them credit for. So that is why I'm going to go for 8th. So this is one that I kind of, like I said, I set these in stone. And after the weekend's fixtures, I probably would have bumped them up a little bit. But in 7th place, I've gone for Everton. Now, Everton's business they've done this window so far has been fantastic. Brought in three really good additions. James Rodriguez, Alan and Decore. That midfield, that's the core of the midfield, if you like. James played out wide against Spurs, but still really effective. What we come to expect from James Rodriguez. I think if he was in behind the striker, then he could probably do a great deal of damage more. Alan sitting in front of the back four and Decore, that's that engine in midfield. I think, full season under Ancelotti, you could tell yesterday in the game against Spurs that they've, worked on a lot, and they're starting to believe in what he wants and the way he wants to play. Pickford looked like a new player yesterday. I thought he was really good. Calvert-Lewin as well. He's another year older, another year wiser. I think he could really have a good season. I don't think they'll quite reach Europe this year. I think it might just be out of touch. I just think the top 6 have just sort of pushed on that little bit more. But yeah, they're going to have a really good season, much improved on last year. So I'm going to go for 7th for Everton. So in 6th position, I am going to go for Arsenal. Now, I debated as well putting Arsenal higher up, but I just think, 6th. I think sounds about right. They've made some good additions. They've brought in Willian, of course, from Chelsea. Aubameyang signed a new contract. It's almost like a new signing. He's that important. Gabriel at the back was superb against Fulham. They've got Ceballos in again for another season. He's a really good player. Arteta again, really exciting young manager, buying into what he's doing. I think Arsenal are a really exciting prospect. I'm just not, again, sure. There's always those lingering doubts over Arsenal, especially the defence. I know Gabriel came in and just was really good. I'm interested to see what Saliba is like as well, and whether, him and Gabriel can form a really good partnership. But I just think, again, Arteta, young manager, I think there might be times where they just, what they're trying doesn't quite work, and they might get a little bit found out. So I think they'll finish better than they did last season, but I'm going to go for 6th. So in 5th position, I am going to go for Tottenham. After yesterday's game, I'd be amazed if they carry on that way. I'd be amazed if they make the top half of the table, but it is what it is. They're not always you're not gonna win every game. Everton was always going to be a tough game as well, but they looked awful yesterday, if I'm going to be brutally honest. The business they've done is not great. They've brought in Højbjerg, and he's kind of a different centre midfielder to what Spurs have, but whether it's what they needed exactly, remains to be seen. They brought in Joe Hart, don't really know why. And they brought in Matt Doherty as well. Matt Doherty, I think, is a good signing. They looked fairly bright yesterday, but you can still need. There's work to be done to fit in. But yeah, they just looked tired. They just had no rhythm, no connection. It just looked all over the place. I put them high up because I think with a full season under Mourinho, I think he will try and get the best out of them. It's not the best football to watch, but he's one of the best managers in the world. There's no doubt about that. So that's why I've got them so high. They desperately need a striker to back up Kane, because Kane's frustrating. I feel like when he's not, because he's their only option, and sometimes he's just so slow and he doesn't look fit, or sometimes just doesn't look bothered, and you've just got no alternative. So yeah, I still back them to do well. Whether they finish 5th remains to be seen, but that's what I'm going for. So into the top 4 then, and I think top 4 this year is going to be a lot more closely contested. Although I feel like this spot, they're going to be in a bit of a league of their own in 4th position, and I'm going to go for Manchester United in 4th. Post-lockdown, they had an absolutely superb run. Bruno Fernandes absolutely revitalised that team, and he's come in and made a massive difference. Martial was scoring goals, Rashford was good, Greenwood was good, Pogba, when he came in, was playing well. And I think Fernandes just gave them a new lease of life. I think only one major, obviously they've got Igalo again, I think, for the season on loan, but Donny van der Beek coming in, I think, is a massive signing. Surprised that no one's picked him up sooner, because that midfield 3 of Fernandes, Pogba and van der Beek could be properly tasty. I think van der Beek, he's kind of like he likes to get forward. I feel like maybe Solskjaer might operate him as sort of to sit a bit deeper. I think he's capable of doing that. We might not see the best out of him for that reason though. But I just think United's problem is defensively. Harry Maguire's been named captain again. Obviously he's had all the trouble during lockdown. De Gea in goal as well. He had a bit of a torrid time towards the end of last season. Henderson coming in will be a really interesting challenge. I wouldn't be surprised if United go for Henderson. But I just think United will score lots of goals, but I feel like they'll concede quite a lot as well. And I feel like that's probably why they might not challenge quite at the top. But I think they'll probably be that bit clear of Spurs and Arsenal. So United in a bit of a league of their own, I'm going to go for 4th. Alright, so the top 3 I think is going to be very tight this year. It could go either way between these 3. I've seen people predict all sorts of things. I think for me, it could be separated by minimal points. With 3rd position, I'm going to go for Chelsea. Now, the business that Chelsea done has been phenomenal. Lampard's gone out and made some fantastic signings. Timo Werner coming in is massive. Havertz as well could be huge. Ziyech from Ajax, again, another one. I'm surprised that no one's picked him up sooner as well. Thiago Silva from PSG is absolutely massive. Chilwell as well, brought in so many first team players that are just good and ready to go, slot straight in. They brought in Malang Sarr as well. I know they plan to loan him out, but he's certainly going to be, I think, a really good centre back in the future. I think Chelsea. I was tempted to put Chelsea higher up, but I just think City and Liverpool have just got that little bit more about them. It might take a little while for Chelsea to gel. Who knows? Lampard as a manager hasn't quite contested this high up. He did a fantastic job last season to get them in the Champions League. I just think that might be a little bit stretched too far. I think it will be close, but I think Chelsea, you know, maybe next season could be their season. So that's why I'm going to give them third this time around. Okay, so we are into our top two. And obviously, you know, the two teams that are left, City and Liverpool. In second place, for me this season, I am going to say Liverpool. You know, they picked up the win at the weekend, beating Leeds. It was a fantastic game. Obviously, Salah bagging a hat-trick. You know what he can do. Defensively, they were shocking. Van Dijk, you know, did not look like a £75 million centre back. His mistake for the second goal was not what you expect from a man of his calibre. But they just looked tired. They just didn't look fit. You know, they haven't really brought anyone in. They've brought in that left back, that Greek left back, I think. I can't even remember his name. But, you know, they've got a good squad, undeniably. But they need to bring in more. They need to, you know, freshen things up. Bring in a couple of players just to spice things up if they want to keep things interesting. But I just can't see them holding on to the title this year. And, yeah, I think things might start to catch up with them a little bit. I think they'll be there or thereabouts. I think it'll be a close run thing. But I just don't think they'll quite have enough about them to, you know, defend their title as it was. So I think Liverpool this season will finish second. Which means then I have got Manchester City to finish top, to win the Premier League this season. I think Guardiola will be embarrassed by last season. You know, they finished second, but they finished so far. It was like 18 points they finished behind Liverpool. He is going to be hungry for that Premier League title. He is going to want it back badly. And they've gone out and done some massive business, got it done early. Ferran Torres has come in. You know, I think that's a massive signing. You know, he did really well at Valencia. And, you know, he's done quite well for the national team, I think, as of late. So him coming in only for 20 million as well is decent. You know, replaces Leroy Sané. So that's that problem sorted. Nathan Ake as well. You know, City have been crying out for a centre-back for a long time. And Nathan Ake, you know, whether he can perform at this high level, you know, remains to be seen. Obviously, he did a very good job at Bournemouth. 40 million they've spent on Ake. But, you know, he could, if him and, you know, Laporte can stay fit and they form a partnership, that could be their centre-back issue sorted. I mean, they've got Otamendi and Stones, who are, you know, on their day, very good centre-backs. So if they can all step up, all play a part, then I really think City have, you know, have got that sorted. Obviously, you know, the threat they've got going forward. De Bruyne, Sterling, Aguero, Jesus as well. Foden is going to play a lot more this year, I feel. You know, losing David Silva is a massive blow, but he wasn't quite as, you know, he didn't play quite as much maybe last season, and his powers probably weren't what they once were. But yeah, I just think that it's going to be City's year. I think they'll be desperate to get their hands back on that Premier League trophy. So there we go, guys. That is it. That is my Premier League predictions for this season. Like I said, obviously would have liked to got this video out a little bit earlier, but I apologise for that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know whether, you know, the same with the Championship ones. Have I got this horribly wrong? Am I about bang on? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.